Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm excited to sit down and just play with a couple new products that I'm excited about. Recently I've been doing dedicated first impressions to new launches, and with that comes stress of waiting on packages and then shipping delays and just trying to get the video up as quickly as possible. So today we're gonna do some of the products that are not gonna be in a dedicated first impression because it's a little bit later, or I just feel like, I don't know, I've passed the time for you guys to be that interested, but I'm going to be using products that I purchased and then some in PR. Mostly products that I purchased. I have the Anastasia Beverly Hills Rose Metals palette. I also ended up buying the Nars palette, the cheek palette. I was not gonna get this. I typically get PR from Nars. And I actually started seeing reviews of how different it looked in person than it did in the promo photos. And to be honest, this shade and this shade just threw me over the edge. And I was like, I'm not waiting. Whether they send it or not, I'm gonna buy it. So I wanna play around with that palette. I also have this concealer that I purchased a while ago and just never used. This is a new brand at Sephora called Kulfi, Kulfi. So this is a new concealer. I also have some PR from Lawless. They sent over their brow products. You're probably thinking, your brows look even crazier than usual, and you are correct. For lips, I never know which way I'm gonna go, even though, you know, I always end up with a nude pink. Let's keep it real. But I wanna try out these from Nars. They sent over this generous package of a ton, I think every shade of their new Power Matte lipsticks. So I'll swatch a few, we'll try this out, see what we think. But I really want to focus in today on the cheek palette from Nars and the ABH palette on the eyes. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. I will link everything that I talk about today down below in my description box. If you enjoy these videos, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you're new here, I hope you stick around and subscribe. And let's go ahead and get into it. So first up, I want to try out this new brow pencil from Lawless Beauty. This is the Shape Up Soft Fill Brow Pencil. So they sent this in PR, and I did pick out the shade Oak. So on one side you have a spoolie, and then on the other side, it's sort of like oval shaped, and this is why I underlined my brows. I need something precise, and I typically use the Huda Beauty really fine brow pencil to underline, or I will use the Benefit Precisely My Brow. But I wanted to try this to fill in just because there's no way this is going to be small enough to do, well, I don't know, swatching it, it feels like a drier formula, which I actually prefer. I don't like when they're super slick and creamy because I feel like I can get no precision. So this is the shade Oak. So I'm just gonna go through and fill in. It has nice pigment. I actually like that color. I think this is the second to lightest color. And for reference, in Benefit, I really like 3.5. I can use 3, but I like a little bit more definition just because I have such light features. So I like that to fill in. Again, I don't know though. I've never liked a pencil this large to actually do any like line work or brow strokes, but I like that this is a drier formula. It doesn't feel waxy either, which is good. I have to say it's a lot faster than using my Benefit Precisely My Brow, because usually I will underline with my Huda and then go in with my Benefit to fill in, but that was really quick. So I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the ABH palette. I will try the Lawless Gel after I actually get my makeup on, but let's get into this new palette. Now I have to say, I saw this and I really wasn't that interested. I just wasn't over the moon excited, and I bought it because I wanted to review it. I didn't really know how you guys felt. To be honest, I feel like we have had just a huge drop of new makeup, and it was just like the Pat McGrath collection, the Charlotte Tilbury face palettes. By the way, I purchased those on launch day on her website, had the fastest shipping, and I got a shipping notification on Friday of last week that it had shipped and it was coming on Monday. So I was like, okay, you know, it is what it is, even though I had next day air and I purchased it on Wednesday. If it comes on Monday, I will film. So then I checked my tracking Monday morning and it said label created, waiting for UPS to get the package. So UPS has not even gotten the package. So then I called Charlotte Tilbury customer service and they said, oh, that's strange. If you don't get the package by tomorrow, which is today, Tuesday, then I have to call them back and then they have to reorder it. So I don't know if by then it'll take like 2 more days to process and then we'll be in the same boat, a little frustrated with that. I've been having just so many issues lately with shipping, and I'm not, you know, I'm not special. I know everybody is having issues since, you know, COVID and all that stuff, but it really does feel like lately a lot of my packages have literally just been like poof, lost. And then I have to like contact customer service. They take days. I was thankful that I could actually call Charlotte Tilbury. So that's why I don't have my video on the face palettes yet. I'm literally waiting. I bought both of them. So when I get them, a video will be coming. But back to the ABH palette. I purchased this as well as the Charlotte Tilbury palettes, Pat McGrath Big palette, the Hourglass palettes, the Patrick Ta blush palette. So I was kind of ordering a bunch of stuff and just waiting for it to show up. And this showed up, but again, I was focusing on the Pat McGrath and the Patrick Ta at the time. So at this point, I feel like, you know, people really don't seem that excited about this. It's interesting because I thought, you know, when I saw the preview that everybody was gonna go crazy. People usually love ABH shadows and palettes. People just didn't seem that into it, and I don't know why really. I think the promo photos weren't that enticing. You just couldn't really tell the textures and the colors. I have to say that the Nouveau palette is my favorite palette ever from ABH. They stepped the quality up on that palette, and it is just absolutely stunning. The quality is great. So I picked up the new palette, the Rose Metals, and I actually do like this. This is like almost like a crinkled leather type of feel. I like it over the velvet. It has these little edge kind of detailings, which I like. And then on the back, you have the sticker. And then when you open it up, I have to say in person, it looks way better. So when I originally got it, I opened it up and I sent a photo to Cheryl and I said, this looks way more pretty in person. And I mean, I was just shocked. Now I haven't swatched it, so I can't say, and I don't know in terms of putting it on. We will try it today. But for some reason, it just looked like gunmetal goodness to me in person. And again, I have spoken about how I really have been loving cool tones, and I think maybe that's why. Okay, so I went ahead and swatched the entire palette, and it looks like we have more metallics than we do the mattes. We have 4 mattes. A couple of them look like they have a little bit of the glitter in them, but you can't see it on the eye. This one looks like a satin. And then these, there's different finishes. You have a couple that are like really intense, and then you have the more smooth metallic shades. But overall, I do feel like this leans more cool tone, like grungy. My past few videos of reviewing palettes, I've really been doing like intense, deep looks that aren't necessarily what I would want to wear, so I need a little break. My lids are a little stained as well from the Pat McGrath palette, Juvia's Place Colorful palette. I just have a lot of different palettes that I've been using. So I'm actually gonna start out with this shade right here called Haze. This is one of the more chunky shades, so I definitely probably would do your eyes first. And I'm just gonna lay this on the lid. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's like a, I don't know, interesting, like metallic, has a green sort of undertone, but it also looks taupe. So next I'm gonna go into the shade Ashes right here, which is one of the cooler mattes. And I wanna just blend around the edges. This one's definitely powdery in the pan, but I feel like that's pretty typical for ABH. I feel like we had so many new releases like right at once, and I'm like, isn't it a little early? Like we're not even halfway through October, and I'm like, what, like are all the holiday collections done or? Okay, next I'm gonna go into this shade called Nocturne. Now this is actually a metallic or shimmer, so I probably am gonna have quite a bit of fallout, but I just wanna add some depth. So I'm gonna try to take a little bit of the shade Sunrise. Even though it's quite warm, I wanna try to just soften these edges very lightly. Okay, so I think I want a little bit more depth. So I'm gonna go into the shade Noble up here, and I wanna pack this on the outer corner. So I'm just sort of using it on the outer half. And then I am gonna go back into the first shade, Haze, and I wanna use this all on the inner portion. And then going back into the Noble shade and blending. And then again going into Nocturne, which is a shimmer, but it's not quite as intense. So I'm just gonna use this in the center here, just so they blend a little bit better. Okay, so I went ahead and did winged liner and lashes. I will link what I use down below, but I want to go in with this primer. It's relatively new to me, but I have been using it every single day. This is the Glowish by Huda Beauty Blur Jam. So this is a silicone-free primer, and honestly, I've actually found quite a few new favorites over the past like 6 months or so. This one's quite interesting to my collection because I think it's the only one that is silicone-free, and what I like about this is you can smooth it all over your skin. So a lot of my pore smoothing primers, I really only put right in the center, but this one, I can put it all over and it gives me like a smooth base, and it also gives me some sort of like hydration without being heavy or oily. So I'm just gonna take it literally all over. I've been using it a lot. The one thing I will say that I've noticed is let it dry before you go in with your foundation. So just give it a minute or two to sort of set down before you start putting foundation on. It feels really cooling on the skin too, I've noticed. So I don't have a new foundation, but I'm just gonna use one of my favorites that I cannot stop reaching for, which is the L'Oreal Infallible. I have the shade 455. I went to Ulta the other day, and when I was checking out, the clerk was like, "Can I ask you a question?" And I was like, "Sure." And she's like, "What foundation are you wearing?" And I was like, "Actually, the L'Oreal Infallible." And she was like, "Really?" And so we were having a chat. So I don't know if it was the foundation or the blur primer from Huda, because I was wearing both, but I have just been wearing this non-stop. So I'm gonna go ahead and use a brush to apply. This is just such a good formula, especially if you have combo skin like I do, and you want medium buildable coverage, but you want a matte finish that's going to last all day without being like dry. Okay, so now I wanna try this concealer that I picked up a while ago. This is from a brand called Coolfi or Coolfi, and this is the Main Match Crease Proof Long Wearing Hydrating Concealer. They say this has a radiant finish, it's hydrating, medium coverage. So I got the shade Cocoa Crush. I just saw this new brand. I know they have this and I think eyeliners, and that is it. So I just want to see, feels pretty thick and hydrating. And to blend it out, I got these adorable sponges from Sephora. So I got a 2-pack, and they're the Sephora Collection Strawberries and Cream sponges. I just thought they were cute, but they actually smell like strawberries and cream. I mean, they literally smell like strawberries, infused with strawberry powder. I don't know how long that will last, but I used the other one yesterday, and I was like, oh my gosh. That smells incredible, which again, I mean, do we really need our sponges to be infused with a scent? No, but it is a cute little touch, and they're really soft. Actually might get another set because some of my beauty blenders are rough, like torn, ripped, and those are expensive, although I can get a deal now that it's going into like holiday time. I try not to buy beauty blenders full price. I try to get like 4 for 60 or 3 for 40, something like that. But I like how soft this is, and it's not as porous as a beauty blender. It's more smooth overall. So this is what the concealer looks like blended out. I feel like it's definitely radiant. I don't know. I feel like, did it get a little bit deeper? The shade, I feel like it maybe oxidized a little bit, or the shade's just a little bit deep, not, brightening on my under eye. So I'm not sure that built up any. I feel like you're gonna get a good solid medium, low medium coverage. I may need to color correct with this concealer, but it feels really hydrating. I don't see like any radiance in it, but it feels similar consistency wise to like the Charlotte Tilbury. So I wanna go in next with my powder. I'm gonna use my Huda Beauty in Pound Cake. I wanna see how this plays with powder. Okay, I don't know if you can see, but I feel like I have almost like some of the concealer lifted and I lost coverage right there. So I'm gonna try the other side and let's see if that happens over here too. So I'm only noticing right here, like that little area. So I'm just gonna try to take some of my powder from J-Cat, but I don't think I can really do much about it. It's just gonna be a little bit of an area that looks like I lost a little bit of coverage. So next I want to try out this Lawless Brow Gel. This is called the Hold Up Soft Set Creamy Brow Wax. I have the shade Light Medium, and it says that it's long wear, strong hold, and conditioning. So it has a really small little spoolie. Now I always use a clear brow gel, so if this doesn't really hold, I'm probably gonna go in with my Mario after, but I'm just gonna brush this through. So it definitely has some pigment to it. I wanna use a brush here after a minute and see if I can get it to set in place. So I just take a brush or really anything and just push the hairs in place. So the question will be, will that stay? It really combs through them nicely and it's not too heavily pigmented, but you definitely can see some pigment. Okay, my brows are done. I like the tint to it and I do think that it helps, you know, get your brow hairs stood up, but I really don't feel like it's gonna hold because it just feels like a soft hold. So I still need something like the ABH Brow Freeze or my Mario, but I want to go in next with my Dior palette. This is an oldie but a goodie, and I'm just going to use this shade to add a little bit of dimension to my face before we go in with the Nars. Roscoe's downstairs on the couch, snoring louder than I've ever heard him snore. I'm like wondering if you guys can hear it because it's that loud. And he's not really a snorer, like he's very quiet. So he must be like in a deep sleep right now. To bronze the face, I'm gonna use one of my favorites. This is Fenty Beauty in Shady Biz. This is actually my second that I've panned. I just love this formula and I like this shade. It's a lighter shade, but I can build it up. So it's like an effortless bronzer for me. Okay, so now I want to get into blush, my favorite. So this is the newest palette for holiday from Nars, and it is the Rising Star Cheek Palette. So I usually get PR from Nars, but I didn't receive this. I shared it on my community tab. A lot of you guys were super excited. And then I started watching some reviews, and it looked so different in person. I actually thought it looked better. This shade and this shade sold me, so I just went ahead and bought it. This is absolutely stunning. Like I love the imprint of the stars, but it really did look so different online. So I'm curious to swatch these. This one almost looks like a purple. Not a lot of brands do purple. So here are 3 shades, and then here are the other 3 shades. I mean, these all look like they have a very subtle sheen to them, like no glitter or anything. This one looks like a highlighter blush topper. I'm trying to figure this out. I think I'm gonna start out with this one. I just wanna see what it looks like on the skin. So because these are that baked gelée formula, they're not powdery at all, I would use more of a stiff brush. So I'm gonna use this one from Fenty and just dip in, and you're really gonna wanna, you know, go in so you can see the product on your brush. This is not a formula that you have to be afraid to really get in there. So I'm gonna start off with this orangey shade. So you do have to really build this up. I mean, this is one of the lighter shades, but just because of the baked formula. Okay, so here's the orange shade on the skin. You definitely have to build it up, but I wanna go in and try one of the more punchy colors. So I'm gonna dip into this one. I would assume because this is deeper that you don't have to build as much. So that one showed up in one pass. So there are the 2 mixed. And then I can't help it, even if it clashes, I have to go in with the purple. I just feel like this color is so unique. So I'm curious to try these more, and I want to see how it looks when I get, you know, my lips on and everything. Formula definitely buildable. You really do have to sort of like dig your brush in there, and I would use a firm brush, but I am interested to keep trying this. These 3 shades right here just look so gorgeous. So I'll keep playing around with this, but let's go ahead and finish off the lower lash line. So to finish off the eyes, I'm going to go into this deepest matte up here with a flat brush, and I'm going to stamp just about halfway in. And then I'm going to take a more fluffy brush and just sort of smoke this. And then I want to take a little bit of ashes, and I just want to use this to smoke underneath, just so it's not too warm on the lower lash line. And to highlight the face, I'm just going to use one of my favorites from the drugstore. This is a brand called Luna Magic. You can get this at Walmart. And this is the highlighter in Tulum. They have incredible blushes too. So I just want to add a little bit of highlight. Okay, and to finish off with lips, I have these lip liners I purchased from BabsBeauty. So there's two different formulas. I don't really understand the difference except for the application. So the first one is the Anaheim Line Pencil Liner. Now I've tried this before. It's a little bit light for me, just to do, you know, I don't know, I like a brown liner, but I really want to try this one out. Now this one's interesting. On one side it has a brush to blend in, and this is called the Pout to Get Real Overlining Lip Pencil in the shade Do Whatever. What makes this interesting is the applicator. It is something I've never seen before. If you can see, Okay, so here's a swatch of this one. It feels drier. I'm kind of like confused on how to get precision. I'm thinking you would just hold it like this and then you could fill in. So let's just try it out. So this one is definitely more tuggy. I don't mind that because I have more control and I feel like it'll last longer. I'm trying to figure out though, when you go to line the other side, do you just, or do you hold it like this? Okay, this one might have like a serious learning curve because I feel like I don't know which way to hold the actual pencil, and this one's tugging without much pigment, which is not my favorite. Like I'm pushing down hard to try to get pigment. Okay, I'm actually gonna switch to the other one, because looking at them, they're very similar in color. And I just don't like the applicator on the other one. I don't know, I feel like I couldn't get control, but also nothing was coming off. Like I was pushing hard. Okay, I got my lips lined finally, and I wanna go in with one of these new lipsticks from Nars. So these are their new Power Matte lipsticks, and they have a bunch of different shades. They sent this over. So of course, you guys know I'm probably gonna go for the lightest one, also because my eyes are quite dramatic, but let me pull out a couple of these. Okay, so I pulled out a couple shades. The packaging is really nice. It has the color of the lipstick on the outside, and it has that soft matte feel. And then when you open it up, this is what the lipstick looks like. So let's swatch this one. This one is the lightest one, I think, just from the outside, and this is Sweet Disposition. Looks like a cool tone sort of pink. Let me swatch this one. This one is called Tease Me, which is definitely darker. So these look like they're pretty dark. I mean, this was the lightest one, again, just from looking at the outside packaging. So I'm gonna go in with the first one called Sweet Disposition, especially because our lip liner is pretty light. So I don't notice a scent. It's not like a dry matte feel. I feel like my lips are super blanked out. Like I wanna reach for a deeper lip liner. You guys know how I am, but it feels comfortable. Now it seems like it's setting down a little bit. Okay, so they say this is a transfer resistant matte lipstick that glides on, delivering bold color with all day comfort for up to 10 hours of wear. So it definitely feels like it's set down. This must be very similar to the Dior lipsticks that they came out with. I think they're like the Dior Forever. So let's see. There's very little transfer. I mean, very little. I'm curious to know if this is gonna be the new thing. I feel like we're going into winter, at least where I live. So we're going into the colder months where, you know, dewy skin, glossy lips is not the norm. So I'm wondering if companies, instead of doing like the dry down matte liquid lipsticks, they're gonna do bullet lipsticks like this. And I do have to say, I much prefer this. It's just much more comfortable. Of course, I've only had it on for like 10 minutes at this point, but it doesn't feel like it's gonna get that line. It just feels like it's gonna be more comfortable, and I would rather have something like this that would transfer minimally than something that's like dry down, cracked, and gives you like, you know, the dreaded butthole lips. But I think the shade is pretty. it's just really blanked out. But this is the lightest shade from what I could tell. Okay, so here's my finished makeup look trying new products. It's not my favorite. I definitely did my liner a little bit wonky, and then my lashes, I didn't trim them and apply them perfectly. So let's just disregard that. But let's talk about the products. So the ABH Rose Metals, love the packaging in person, and as I said, I do believe that it looks much more appealing in person. Now there's a couple things I noticed. The shimmers in here all lean pretty deep. This is the lightest shimmer that you have here, but the rest of them have a lot of depth to them. So this is going to be a deep smoky palette, kind of similar to how the Huda Beauty Empowered palette was, but this is obviously not gold and really warm. This does have a mix of warm and cool tones, but I would say this leans more cool, grungy, metallic. One thing I would say is I do wish that the deepest matte in here was more gray. I would have liked to see this shade in particular just be like a deep, smoky, almost charcoal blackish color, because I feel like I was sort of forced to go into the shade to deepen up. Because of the 4 mattes in the palette, these 2 are definitely warm. This one is cool, but then this one I would say is sort of in the middle, but it's not quite cool enough for me. So I would have liked to see this just be a little bit more on the gray side. So I feel like this palette is not going to be an everyday type of palette, at least for me, just because the shimmers are so incredibly like deep and rich. This is a smoky palette for sure. I feel like this is what you reach for if you want like a grungy smoked out look. In terms of quality, everything blended and everything was pigmented. There definitely was fallout, but keep in mind I was layering on, you know, a ton of metallics, and then I was actually blending a metallic as well, which typically I just pack them on. So I felt like the quality was good, but I feel like there is a learning curve here. Unless you want to do something really intense and smoky, it's pretty difficult, I would say, to do a light look with this, solely because, you know, all of the shimmer shades are just really rich and intense. Moving on to the Lawless brow products, I am pleasantly surprised by these. So the brow pencil, it's not a super fine tip, but I do like the formula. It is not overly pigmented, but it's not sheer, and it really fills in nicely without being waxy or heavy and clumping, and it also doesn't slip and slide, so you have control. I'll keep using this, but this would be something that I would use maybe in place of my Benefit Precisely My Brow to fill in, because it was quick and easy and I really like the formula. And then I do feel like my brows are still hanging on and still standing up with this brow wax. Now it definitely is a brow wax, meaning that it's not a gel that dries down. I still feel like I have lift right now, but I do have to see how this wears throughout the day. There really isn't any crunchiness at all, but I actually like the crunch because I know it's going to last. I also like the pigment in this too. This sort of gives me a similar vibe to the Milk Makeup, I think it's called the Kush Brow Gel, but this has a little bit more of a waxy feel, a little bit more hold, but the brush and the amount of pigment and everything else is very similar. So I actually really like this. This would be something that I would use after. So I would put my brow gel in, fill them in, and then use this to really fluff up and give me a little bit more of that fiber, fluffy brow look. If it wasn't clear before, I am absolutely loving the Glowish Primer, and I'm shocked that I love it. I honestly was like, I'm gonna try this, it's gonna do nothing for my pores, and I don't know what kind of magic it is, if it's this mixed with the L'Oreal Infallible, or just this, or the L'Oreal Infallible, but I have worn this basically every single day since I tried it, and I just love the texture. It's not heavy, it feels nice and like cooling and slick on the skin. You can really use it all over, and it really just smooths my pores out. I feel like my skin looks nice and smooth. I've been getting compliments, as I said. You guys can let me know down below how you think my skin is looking with this primer, but I've been using it pretty much every single day. It's become a top drawer favorite for me. Now moving on to the concealer from Coolfi or Coolfi. I'm not in love, but I don't dislike it. I think that something funky happened here where it lifted a little bit of my coverage. I do find this to be a medium coverage. I don't know how buildable it is beyond that. And I do think it is hydrating. So it's sort of like the Charlotte Tilbury, but without the radiance and brightening aspect. I think this would be a good everyday, you know, if you have dry skin or you just want something hydrating on your under eye, but you're not too fussy about having like really high coverage. So I'll keep testing this, but my first impression is just, it's okay. Absolutely loving these sponges that I got from Sephora in the 2-pack. I honestly didn't even know they smelled when I purchased them. They just had good reviews for being soft and blendable. And I can just like smell it as I'm just doing my makeup, and it's a light, comforting smell. I don't know, it's like strawberry, but very light. I wonder how long the smell will stay on here, but regardless of the scent, I think they're adorable and they're really soft and blendable, so I'm glad that I picked these up. Moving on to the Nars Rising Star Cheek Palette, I am happy that I picked this up. I really wasn't going to because I thought it was coming in PR, but also the shades just looked pretty neutral, like pink mauve-y. I am so happy that this has like a purple tone blush and this really like creamsicle orange and then these really deep tones. Now I will say you have to build this formula. So this is not going to be for those of you that don't want to do a couple layers. Just the nature of the formula, it's not powdery and it's not heavy. So you do have to use a dense brush and really get in there, especially with this shade. These two shades, a couple layers, and I felt like I got opacity, but I'm excited to keep trying this, and I am really happy that Nars came out with some different colors. Specifically, these two shades are just a little bit different than what we typically see, and I'm just honestly thankful there's no orgasm in here. Now, in terms of the lip products, I have some pros and cons, some goods and some bad. So I really don't like this overlining lip pencil, the one with the strange applicator. I just feel like I could not figure out how to apply it and have any control. Also, I feel like I was tugging and really no pigment was coming off. I do like a drier lip liner, but it has to actually have pigment. So I'll keep testing this, but this one I just found to be kind of frustrating. This one I actually like, but it's a little bit light for me. You can see that this is not my normal like deep lip liner. This would be like an everyday lip liner, but I like the formula. It's a typical crayon type lip liner. It's not as creamy as the Twist Up, but I actually prefer that. I just wish the shade was a little bit deeper because I found myself really pressing trying to get that depth. And lastly, my thoughts on the new Nars Power Matte lipstick. So I love the packaging. I think it's really beautiful how it has the similar shade on the actual component, so you're not like digging through trying to find which one you want. They do seem to run a little bit deep. This is the lightest one, but the rest of them seem to have a little bit more depth, so that could be good if you like deeper lip colors. Here's my thing. It did feel comfortable and it still does. I don't feel dry, but I do notice now that I've had this on for maybe 20-30 minutes, my lips are sticking together. So when I'm speaking, I feel like there's a tack. And I don't know if you guys can see that. There's no stringing, there's no butthole lips that I can see, which is a good thing. So that is something I literally just noticed within the last like 5 or 10 minutes when I was talking to the camera. I just felt like my lips were sort of just like wanting to stick together. So I'll have to keep trying this out and see if that's something that bothers me or if it goes away within, you know, 30 minutes to an hour or if it gets worse. But really it looks great and I feel like it is a good option for those of us that want our lipstick to wear a long time but don't like the dry liquid lipsticks. I'm glad that brands are dipping their toe into a bullet formula that's matte but comfortable. So I'll update on this, but it's just something I wanted to note that I kept kind of feeling my lips want to press together. Okay guys, so I think that is everything for this trying new makeup. I just wanted to play around with some new products that I picked up recently. I should have a video coming on the Pat McGrath, I think they're the 5-pan, the little palettes, and then if my Charlotte Tilbury palettes ever show up, a video will be coming on that as well. So just bear with me while I wait for shipping, but I will link everything that I used down below in my description box. Do let me know what you think if you tried any of these products or what you think about how they applied. I always love chatting with you guys. If you're new here, I hope you stick around and subscribe. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you guys again so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.